You just have to wait for them.
Well, I've seen them before and now they're gone.
Mhm.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our second community forum, where we will discuss our reopening of the Salamanca City Central School District schools. In a moment, I will turn it over to Dr. Beeler for a few comments, and then we will take your questions. At this point in time, as we have stated on a number of occasions, our priority is the safety, wellness, and continuity of our instructional plans. Dr. Beeler, our building administrators, our supervisors, our program directors, and our staff of all levels and all credentials have done a remarkable job helping us to manage the COVID crisis, which started this past March. I would like to personally thank them for all of their efforts. They have been Herculean and amazing. I would also like to remind our community that we remain steadfastly committed to safety, wellness, and instruction. This is something we will not waver from as we return to schools in some capacity in the next 3 weeks and beyond that. Finally, before I turn it over to Dr. Beeler, if you have a question, please submit it into the Zoom chat room. Please type your full name so we can respond to you specifically if there is a follow-up, the building that your child or children attend, and what your question is. We will do our best to get to all of those questions in a timely and succinct manner to get you the information. If you are on Facebook Live, you can submit your comment and we will get that relayed from Levi. Lastly, there may be questions, as there were in our first forum, where we do not yet know the answer. Please rest assured that we will find those answers and get back to you as soon as we can humanly and possibly do. From the entire district, I would like to thank you for your patience, your engagement, and your trust. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Beeler.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Breitenstein. And again, thank you to all those who are in attendance for your time today. As Mr. Breitenstein mentioned, this is an opportunity. We have this purposely set up so that it is accomplished in a live format because we want the community, our staff, and our students to see that we are 100% transparent as we develop this plan together, make constant revisions to it to ensure that all of our employees, our students, and our staff are as safe as possible when they enter and come back to school. We have said up to this point, and I just want to reiterate again, that we are committed to ensuring that we open the buildings to students and staff safely. If we cannot do that, we will not open our buildings. So with that in mind, we have established a philosophical priority of focusing on e-learning. So that's remote learning. We're referring to that in Salamanca as simply e-learning. Our commitment is to ensure that we can do that in the most effective and efficient manner. So we have implemented a significant number of new technologies and provided a significant amount of professional development to our staff over this past summer and will continue to do so during the fall. But let's just as a little bit of a format for today, before we get into this too far. Today is scheduled to run from 4 until 5:30 p.m. We will begin to collect questions and answer those as they come in. As those are starting to come in right now, what I'd like to do is just give a little bit of an overview of where we are right now, as well as where some of the things that have changed since the last time we were together on Thursday. So up to this point in time, we have taken community feedback in the form of 2 parent and student community surveys, 1 staff survey, 9 specific Zoom meetings that were building based, 3 district level Zoom meetings, 1 public hearing. The plan that was developed from that format is currently online on our website. I'll take you through the website here in just a moment because I'm going to make consistent references to that. Our website with regard to the opening plan is updated pretty much on a daily basis. And there is a frequently asked question where all of the questions from last week as well as today will be posted with our responses so that that can eliminate some concerns as far as what we're doing and how we're doing it. As I mentioned, the plan is currently online. There's a link for you to take a look and go through the plan, as well as a link that is open for comments. So at this point in time, I think I'd like to just start with questions that have come in over the past several days from a variety of different sources and address those as they've come in and some of the changes that have occurred over the past several days. One for our staff, which I see there's an awful lot of online. I just want to indicate that we have identified the staff start and end time for all buildings and for really for all staff as 8 to 3:30. For students who are on the hybrid program, which means they'll be coming to school a couple days a week and then also engaging in e-learning, their start and end times will of course be within that 8 to 3:30. But I would anticipate on Wednesday of this week, we will be able to identify exactly what times those are. Given some of the safety requirements for ensuring that people enter the building in a safe manner, We can't have everyone coming in and exiting at exactly the same time. So we're working through the progress of staggering our start and end times, not only for staff, but for students by grade level as well. So, Mr. Bridenstine, are there questions that have come in? At this point, I appear to have lost my connection to Zoom, so I'm going to ask you to answer a couple questions while
Absolutely.
putz
So
around
there
here.
is a question from a parent for a prospect in the high school. If a parent chooses e-learning option for their children at this time, can we change that to in-person instruction at any time? I'll start that answer and then turn it over to Dr. Beeler as he's working through some technical difficulties. Our entire reopening plan is predicated on the safety, wellness, and continuity of instruction. And what that means is we're going to make decisions based on individual family preferences. If it happens to be entirely e-learning, we will support that 100%. And as the crisis evolves, as the health conditions evolve, and as parents' comfort level with any particular model evolves, we will make adjustments to our plan to fit the needs of the individual child, children, parents, staff, and building. The only asterisk that I would put to that, if there is movement between e-learning, a hybrid model, or in person, there may be, just like any other venue, there may be some processing time that we need to make sure that everyone involved is maximally safe. That could be anywhere from a few minutes to a day or two or three, depending upon the complexity and the number of changes that happened. With each change that occurs, the 6 degrees of separation that could impact other individuals or programs or protocols could grow and take up more of our time. But if someone wants to change, I would encourage them to work directly with the building administrator to make sure that A, we can do it safely, B, that we are mindful of the wellness and the structure that needs to be in place, and that we don't do anything to interfere with the quality of instruction that we expect.
Great. Thank you. Now that I've overcome my technical issues there, what I'd like to do is just take a moment and provide everyone with the opportunity to see where they can get these resources and be up to date to the moment as possible. So what you see is our district website. Here's the front page. If we scroll, you will find in one of the gray buttons, district reopening. So we're only one click away from our main webpage to identify exactly what our latest information is. This is where you can find our education plan right here on the left-hand side. You can see where we are welcoming feedback from people. You will also see the current work in progress. This is what's happening over the next couple days. One thing that is happening is we are asking all of the parents who have not been contacted by their building to give us a call. Please call your specific building. There's a series of questions that we're asking for. Most importantly is whether you are selecting e-learning or the hybrid option for your student. Our philosophy, you will see here, is that we will prioritize the requests of parents and guardians. And if they wish for a completely e-learning format, we will do that. If they are looking to have students on campus as much as possible, we can do that as well. At the high school, that's going to look a little bit differently. And we will begin phasing students on once we are convinced that we can do so safely, starting with the youngest grades. We have committees that are working on the work and conduct expectations within the e-learning model. One thing we learned from the spring is that we weren't fully prepared with what the expectations should be for student work and student behavior while working on an online environment. We have a committee of teachers, parents, and students who are working on just that, those expectations. We're also in the process of establishing the bus runs based upon those students who we know that are coming in to school. You'll see down there for future work that we have coming in is that we're working with our labor associations to eliminate any concerns that they may have over safety. And we're going to consistently and regularly respond to questions that parents have. You'll find on the middle of the column that there is a frequently asked question portion. What I would like to do is just reiterate, We are open to any questions or comments that you have at any point in time. I'm the one, Mark Beeler, who's in charge of coordinating this plan. You will see there my personal cell phone. If you have a question, a concern, something doesn't seem to make sense for you, please feel free to give me a call. You'll also see some new pieces here. Our normal school hours for adult staff will be the same for all of our buildings, as I mentioned, from 8 to 3:30. And then some of our other common questions that have been asked. If you go down to the frequently asked questions in this little red where there you can find more, it will take you to another page where we have begun. I'll have to admit it's not completed just yet, but from the August 13th, you will find many, many questions that we have gone through and answered to the best of our ability. And it is our intention to do the same thing for questions for today. So many times the same questions are asked over and over again. So it might be more convenient for you to take a look at those resources yourself at your convenience to see if a question has already been asked.
So we have a couple of questions that have come in. Let me first state that this is from a high school, for the high school. And what is the status of Regents classes and college credit courses? Will there actually be grades with e-learning? First, Regents classes and the curriculum associated with all Regents level credit-bearing classes will continue in full force. And we will continue to offer upper level accelerated learning opportunities, whether they be college credit-bearing classes or AP courses. At the high school, there is no reduction or elimination of any programs or any staff associated with those upper level programs. The New York State Board of Regents has not yet made a determination whether we will actually have Regents exams in January or not. I'm told that will be an August or a September Board of Regents decision. That is not something we control. We will simply respond to what Albany says. And there is a question of that, Dr. Beeler and Mr. Siebert, regarding grades.
Well, actually, I'll let Mr. Siebert answer that.
Yeah, so for the grades, this go around with our e-learning, we are going to be giving numeric grades. If you recall back in the spring, we were going to ultimately initially a pass, an incomplete, and then we changed that to a mastery, satisfactory, passing grade, and then incomplete. Under the current situation with the advances we've made with the technology and putting everything else in together, we are going to go back to a normal actual numeric grading system.
Terrific, thank you. I see Claire has asked a question regarding students getting face-to-face time in classrooms with specific subject teachers. And it looks like there might be some confusion over that. And I believe that some of that confusion may very well be because it's going to be different at various grade levels. Which is actually what she's asking. Can you clarify which grade levels will have actual class time with their subject teachers and which grade levels will be learning on their devices 100%, even if sent to school for the hybrid option? So I want to make sure we're clear on one thing. In the event or when students are here for the hybrid option, so to speak, or when they're actually in the school, that will look as much like a traditional classroom with teachers teaching, students working, collaborating in whatever form we can do so in a socially distanced manner. It will not be students sitting on a computer pretending that they're learning, learning in school like they would be at home. So I'm not sure if that was a miscommunication, but we don't anticipate students just coming into school to sit at a computer to be learning. In the event that students are struggling with e-learning, so this is a great question and something that I'm going to post as soon as we get done with this. For our high school students, we learned in the spring, some students did exceptionally well with the e-learning model. They actually performed better than they did when they were in school. There were other students who, quite frankly, didn't. They were either sort of a no-show, and we'll, take some of the heat for that. We didn't clearly articulate somewhat some of the expectations were. This was also a new environment, and we didn't know what the circumstances were at home. We're clarifying exactly what those expectations are now, so that will not be not showing up and not doing anything is not acceptable. But if you have struggles at home, we will work with you. At the high school level, if a student is not let's say they're doing well in all subjects but math, we will make arrangements to bring the student in during the week to work on math. If a student is not performing as expected across the board in all subject areas, we will work with the parents and the student to get that student into and onto the campus as much as possible, because not being successful in school is not an option. Now, I want to make sure I specifically answer Claire's question, where it talks about which grade levels will actually have content-specific teachers that they will be working with. I'm going to ask our principals to sort of chime in on this. I'm going to actually start with Mr. Siebert at the high school level.
Again, for the high school, we are going to start e-learning, for all students. And I think, as Dr. Beeler said, when the students are struggling, we will provide an opportunity for them to come in and get extra support here with an e-learning scenario. As we transition, the goal is to hopefully start bringing students into the classrooms in a hybrid type of situation. But initially, it will be e-learning across the board with some extra supports where needed.
Thank you. How about Mrs. Beaver? What are we looking at for Seneca? How will content specific or grade level specific teachers be working with students?
So do you want me to just I'll give you an overview of what's happening at Seneca. So Seneca is going to be using an e-learning approach for instruction from September 1st through the 11th. Student devices and e-learning materials will be delivered to them on August 26th and the 27th, like we did in the spring, so that everyone has the materials they need moving forward for September 1st. To begin our school year, our focus will be on the social emotional needs of the students, as well as reviewing and assessing where the students are and what they need academically to move forward. And so we will use class pages as our primary platform for students to access all of the content and curriculum that they will need there. So each grade level, every morning we'll have a morning meeting, and the students will be required to attend this meeting. And this will provide an opportunity for teachers to explain and clarify the work that needs to be completed for the day, as well as to take attendance. We will begin to phase students into the building around September 14th, and this would be our hybrid model. So students will attend on A days, Monday and Tuesday, or B days, Thursday and Friday, working with Prospect to ensure that families can attend on the same days together. Wednesdays will be e-learning for everyone. Students choosing the hybrid model will have the support of teachers in the building during a shortened school day. On the days when the students are not face-to-face, they will be expected to follow an e-learning schedule. Our e-learners will be asked to watch lessons prior to attending Zoom times. During the scheduled Zoom time, students will have the opportunity to receive additional support and instruction as needed. The Seneca teachers and staff have received a significant amount of professional development on e-learning and a variety of tech resources to utilize with the students during the remote learning. So we found ways to improve our instruction, and I'm confident that our e-learning model will be more advanced and rigorous in the spring. Our 6th and 7th graders are content specific areas, to answer your question. So those 6th and 7th grade classrooms at this time will remain e-learning until we feel that it's safe and we can easily move the students around from class to class. But they will have access to all the content specific materials through class pages.
Great, thank you.
Mrs. Beaver, can you just clarify, there is a question here from a Seneca parent about when they can expect 5th graders to actually be in the building?
We would like to start bringing 4th and 5th grade students back into the building around September 14th, as long as it's safe to do so.
Okay, thank you. I think I may have accelerated that timetable by a week, but I think Prospect may have some additional plans that may explain my misstatement. Ms. Pavone, if you want to bring us up to speed on the Prospect side.
Sure. Prospect is going to be doing e-learning and hybrid mix, depending on what parents are choosing. The e-learning will have a lot more structure and routine than what we had in the spring. There'll be times for students to attend ELA, math, science, and social studies, and it will be the same time every day. But there'll be different options for parents to select times that work for their family around other Zooms or other items going on. We will start the day with a homeroom huddle for both our hybrid learners and e-learners. Our hybrid model is much the same as Seneca, where students will either be attending Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. And those would be within a specific homeroom that they would attend. And if they are on e-learning, they would receive adult support, similar to what they would get in the classroom. We are looking at making sure guided reading is still part of our schedule and routine, because we know that's critical to our reading success at that level.
Great, thank you. I just want to go back actually, because one thing that bugs me when I watch these on the other side of the computer, I guess, is when people ask questions and people who are supposed to be answering them gloss over them or don't answer them completely. So I want to make sure we do our best to actually answer a question. And I'm going to ask for those people that are listening and in attendance, if we don't answer a question to your satisfaction, don't hesitate to ask it again. It's not our intention to gloss over anything. If we don't have an answer, we're going to say at this point in time, we don't have an answer, and we'll set a time to get you the answer. But I'll admit it's kind of challenging to look at these, read these questions, interpret them, and ask them. All while other ones are coming in. So I'm going to go back. There was a question about college credit courses. We are still offering college credit bearing courses. The colleges that we work with are still articulating, meaning we still have those agreements. So those will continue just as they have in the past. I'm going to go back through that question that Claire asked a little bit in more detail. With regard to subject specific teachers, and I'm going to isolate this to the high school because I think this is specifically where it's referenced. The high school is going to be predominantly, and I'm going to say a strong predominantly e-learning, especially as we start out the school year. So for the first several weeks. So if you were of the impression that, you know, your son or daughter was coming in to the high school and would have all of their subject specific teachers, that is not going to happen that way. It will be through an e-learning for our high school students. Predominantly, if students are not successful, we will bring them in and work with them. It may or may not be their actual teacher that they're assigned to, but it will be a content specific teacher who will make sure that they have what they need. I'll go back through. If a student is struggling with that, everyone in the district now has my cell phone number. So if there's a problem that comes up, plain and simple, just give me a call and we'll work through a solution, and we're committed 100% to making sure all students are successful. So if there's an issue, just give us a call, communicate with us, and we will figure out a solution together. With regard to fifth graders, there's a whole bunch more questions now. We indicated that looks like it'll be starting the second week on Wednesday or Thursday of this week. Once we know for sure, and one of the things that has delayed us is that it's hard for us to set up classrooms and class lists if we don't know exactly what the options are that parents have chosen. So we've set tomorrow as a deadline to know what students are coming in on a regular basis for the hybrid instruction so we can set classes up. Once we do that, we will be able to announce and say, your fifth grader is coming in on Mondays and Tuesdays or on Thursdays or Fridays, starting on this particular day. Our struggle at this point in time is we don't know how many students we're working with, so we can't set that up and be specific for you right now. So we're going to ask for your patience just a little bit longer moving forward. Let's see. Okay, a question about BOCES. BOCES, our CTE program, is running 5 days a week. We're working through transportation right now, and the announcement with regard to how students and when they'll be transported to BOCES in Ellicottville will be coming up very shortly. All right. Bob, do you have any other questions there that you're ready for? All right.
Yes. There was a question about an 11th grader attending a BOCES vocational class. As Dr. Beeler indicated, BOCES is running 5 days a week. So the 11th graders will go to BOCES for either the morning or the afternoon session, depending upon their grade level. And I believe 11th graders go in the morning, excuse me, thank you. 11th graders go to BOCES vocational in the morning. And then in the afternoon, they would have either their in-person or their e-learning, just as if they would if school was in regular operation.
All right, we have a question from Michelle about masks. So staff, are we as staff responsible to buy our own masks and shields? If you are required to have a shield, depending upon what your position is, we will provide those. There will be masks that you can wear your own, and this goes for everyone. Anyone on campus has basically the same expectations. Student, staff, visitor. You have to have a mask upon entering any of our buildings. That mask must meet the minimum requirements of being properly fitted and covering the mouth and nose. We as a district will be providing masks for students that are properly sized. They will be available when a student walks into the building or when a student gets on the bus at the bus stop. They can utilize them for the full day, and as they either depart the building to go home or they leave the bus to go home after being dropped off, they will drop the mask off in the dirty pile, and those will be cleaned that night and then put back into service the next day or when the next batch of masks go out. For staff, I would suggest that you do purchase your own mask. I would hope that at this point in time you would have one for just being out and about. I'm not sure, but I can take a look at the resources that we have right now if we'll be able to provide them for staff, for all staff all the time. Claire is calling me out here for telling me apparently that's not what she was told earlier. I'm going to ask.
That's a good thing.
That is a good thing. We need to all be on the same page. So I just want to make sure and say this. I know that we have a lot of people making the phone calls, and we do our best to ensure that the information is consistent because that undermines our position. It's not as though we're staking our ground on something because things do change, but we do want to make sure that the information is consistent. So I'm actually going to deflect this a little bit because I'm pretty sure this deals specifically with high school. To Mr. Siebert, who is probably going to walk the line between what I said and possibly what Claire was told. But Mr. Siebert, do you see the question that's specifically there?
Yes,
Okay.
I do see the question. So initially, yes, we are. And again, I guess the confusion comes, it will be an e-learning environment to begin with across the board. That is what we are going to predominantly be offering the students. So initially, when the students do come to school, there will be the e-learning hubs. Each teacher does have office hours that the students can tune into. But if they are in need of specific help, all the teachers are going to be here as well. So although we may have aides or assistants or other people in the room kind of supervising it, when there are questions that arise through lessons and things like that, all the teachers are available as well, just to make sure that we are able to answer and support the students any way we can.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to hit the one that Megan asked about, and I'm going to actually ask Ms. Pavone and Mrs. Beaver to speak briefly about how they're going to do their orientation. But she said, when will pre-K students know who their teacher is and get somewhat of an introduction? So that's a great question. We know that it is absolutely critical to make sure that especially our youngest students are very comfortable coming into the building and understand what the expectations are. I have watched several short TikToks. Yes, I'm a cool dad and I'm on TikTok, of teachers who have sort of made a joke out of the fact, and parents, that, okay, I'm dropping my kid off for the first time in a building they've never been to meet a teacher they've never met before, to go through a routine that they have no experience with. That is not the approach that we are taking. That is not an approach that we would be comfortable with asking our students and quite frankly, our parents to be comfortable with. So I'm going to ask Ms. Pavone to just address this question in a little bit more detail because she has a great plan.
So one of the trickiest things with this scenario is we may have to look at homerooms a little bit differently. I know we all get excited to receive that homeroom letter, but we are really looking at things as a grade level team. If your child is coming in for hybrid learning, they will definitely see the same teacher every time that they come in. But those on e-learning, it may look, they may see a couple different teachers throughout the day, depending on the schedule that you choose. For our hybrid students, we are going to do a slow transition into the building. We're going to do, starting September 8th, a grade level at a time, coming into the building for about 10 to 15 minutes with an adult to practice wearing a mask in the hallway. Where does my mask need to go up? Where can it go down? And things like that. So starting on the 8th, most likely with third grade, parents and the student will be able, a parent and the student will be able to go down to the classroom, see the classroom environment, practice wearing a mask within the building, and practice the social distancing that will need to occur. And we're going to go through that with each and every grade level until we hit kindergarten and pre-K. We are very well aware that we cannot have, especially our pre-Kers who have never been in the building and many of our kindergartners who have never been in the building, we can't have them come in without having that exposure initially. We're also having teachers create some videos as a get to know you so that you can watch those as many times as your child feels necessary to feel comfortable with the adults that they're going to be interacting with on a regular basis. We think it's critical for their social emotional development to have that relationship with the adults prior to coming into the building.
Thank you, Ms. Pavone. There are a couple of questions from Mike and Deanna regarding tutoring. So let me kind of touch on the tutoring. Yes, there will be tutoring, and particularly with those students who've received Native American tutoring, either from the Seneca Nation or in an after-school capacity. We did have an Indigenous Education Committee meeting last week, and we have been working closely with the Seneca Nation Education Department, and the tutors will be on site very shortly. There are some changes that are happening just because of regular personnel changes that sometimes happen, but the tutors will be on site as soon as the students are in the buildings and to provide additional supports. Beyond that tutoring, we are working to provide late afternoon, evening, and even weekend tutoring to students and families that may feel as though the e-learning requires some more individualized type of office hours for students who might just simply need some coaching or some encouragement during the after school hours. What we found in COVID 1.0, March to June, that the student biological clocks were not necessarily aligned to the instructional calendar and the workday that we had. So what we are planning on doing is adding additional evening tutoring hours for students to be able to connect with someone that is knowledgeable within that content or subject matter and be able to get some individualized coaching and support.
Great. Tutoring for on-campus only, or can that be done remotely as well?
If anybody is an enrolled Salamanca student and they need tutoring, we will make sure that you have access to that tutor. The tutors will be linked both by teacher and subject and students. And if a Native American counselor or a Native American tutor is attached to a particular student, they will have access to the e-learning pages that the teacher is putting up on their site. And then they can facilitate that type of support. If they are an outside tutor, say a college student or a graduate student or a student teacher from one of the universities, we will link them by subjects, and then they will have biology subject matter hours or office hours.
Great. In a moment, I'm going to ask Mrs. Beaver to talk about incoming fourth graders and other students who will have the opportunity to come into the building. similar to Prospect. I'm also going to ask her to talk a little bit about why 6th grade is sort of the cutoff grade level with regard to hybrid learning and e-learning. While she's getting ready for that, I'm going to shoot, where'd that question go? It just disappeared. Oh, high school. Will the high school have a set date to transition students back in like Seneca and Prospect? At this point in time, we do not have a date where we will start bringing back high school students on a regular basis. One of the things that we're doing is looking to determine how successful students are with the e-learning at that level, as well as how sort of everything is happening across the district. I just want to reiterate that there is an awful lot of coordination and quite frankly, new rules that have to be followed in order for us to have staff and students on campus in a safe manner. The reason that we're taking that first week to have staff on campus, but not students, is so that we can provide all of the training that is necessary so that staff can function in the new school with all respect to all of the rules. Everything from respiratory hygiene to proper mask wearing, to which side of the hallway that we can now walk on, to which hallways are going what directions, because quite frankly, some of our hallways are too narrow for bi-directional travel. So we have to change the direction that students will move as they move throughout the building. There are just so many different rules that we need to make sure that we as adults can do them safely and institutionalize them before we bring students in and teach them what the rules are and then monitor them. So that will be an ongoing process for us. And I would say in about a month, we'll take a look and see where we are and how things are going. I also last week mentioned, and I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with this, that if we're a week into this and we identify that we are unable to have students on campus safely, we will go 100% to the e-learning model until we can have are at a level of comfort where we can have students on campus safely. I'm going to consistently reiterate that for us, doing this right is absolutely essential. And that means we're going to do it somewhat slowly until we can build confidence that we can bring more and more students back in the appropriate way. Let's see.
There are a couple of questions regarding e-learning at BOCES for vocational classes. My understanding as of today is that the career tech ed classes are 5 days in person and that e-learning is not an option. Mr. Siebert, is that your understanding also?
I understand currently, yes.
Okay. And again, as Dr. Bueller noted, that's BOCES plan today based on things that are happening on the ground that could change. But we will be transporting students to BOCES. If juniors and seniors have the means to transport themselves, BOCES has indicated that students can transport themselves there as long as they do it safely. And if there are any other specific questions regarding BOCES programming, I would encourage the student or parent to reach out and contact the school counselor at the high school directly for specifics.
Mrs. Beaver, we almost overlooked you there. What did you have an answer to those two questions?
Sure. I'll start with 4th grade orientation. I've been working very closely with the 4th grade team. They are very eager and excited to meet their students, and we are working together to come up with an appropriate orientation, probably the second week of September, where we could bring the kiddos in and get them familiar with the school and their teachers. For 6th grade, there was no real magic number. Seneca houses 4, 5, 6, and 7. 4th and 5th graders being our youngest students, we thought we would try to phase them in first. So an estimated start date for 6th graders would be around September 21st, as long as we can safely do so. And then I think Michelle Osmond had a question about Seneca and traveling to the library. And I've been working closely again with the special area teachers, and we've come up with a plan for utilizing class pages and pre-recording lessons and having that special area content available to all students through class pages to begin with. So they will not travel at this time.
Great, thank you. Let's see, I see Ghost is not happy. I'm sorry to hear that. If you could share with us perhaps what is upsetting you, hopefully that's school related. And we will be happy to work with you. If not, I encourage you to please just give me a call. And we'll see how we can come to a point where you're at least a little bit happier and we can come to common ground. Let's see. That would appear to be just about. Okay, it looks like there's a question we missed regarding prospects, so I'm going to ask Ms. Pavone to jump in on that. Go ahead.
Allison, this is in response to your question about being able to switch times. So if you chose 9 o'clock for ELA one day, would it be able to be 10 o'clock the following day? We'd like to keep it as consistent as possible. So hopefully it could be like a weekly schedule or something like that, just for the sake of the kids and being able to take attendance attached to a Zoom. But we will work with you so that can happen, but it's something that we would want to know ahead of time to be able to plan for that. And then I also had a parent question about if they had said they were unsure, will they get a follow-up phone call? If you could do us the favor and give us a call tomorrow morning, if you did mark unsure, just because we may not be able to get to all of the unsure responses within the survey, that would be great.
Great, thank you. I had that down. Yeah, I missed that one. Someone did ask about whole year. Just a note, we are not comfortable making a commitment for the whole year at this point in time with regard to e-learning. We're optimistic that we'll be able to return to a traditional instructional model much sooner than the whole year. And I know this is frustrating for our parents. I know this is also frustrating for our teachers to plan. I know it's frustrating for our students. I don't have a great answer at this point in time as we talk about long-term plans, such as long-term is suddenly now like 4 months away. But we will listen. We'll do everything conceivably possible to respond appropriately to the feedback that we receive from parents and students. Hopefully, you know that we're committed to doing the absolute best for our students and our staff. And that is likely going to cause some changes over the next 6 months to how we would like to have things done ideally. So we ask for your understanding as we go through that, and we will make the commitment that we will keep you informed in our decisions and use your feedback to inform our decisions. I see a question about what happens when a child is sick in school. So let me just briefly talk about what happens when students get off the bus or come into school. So previously we've been asked, will all students be tested for COVID? All students and staff will not be tested for COVID. We will have a general screening process for anyone who comes onto the campus, be it a parent, a student, a teacher, a visitor, myself, Mr. Bridenstine. We all at this point in time undergo the same screening process. And that involves questions about travel, whether you've traveled outside of the New York State and to what locations you have traveled to. It asks if you're exhibiting any or having any of the symptoms of COVID-19. And it asks if you have had a fever or if you've taken your temperature and if you have a fever. Additionally, as students enter into the school, we have thermal cameras that just take the temperature of every person who comes in. They are no contact. In fact, you don't even realize that it's happening. You're just coming into the building and the temperature is being taken as you come in. In the event that someone does exhibit a fever and the school district has identified 100.0 as that threshold, we know that there are varying degrees. I know my pediatrician didn't consider any of my kids to have a fever if it wasn't over 101. I know the CDC, I believe, is at 100.4. We've just established 100.0. If an individual comes in with a fever or with a reading at 100.0, they will just be taken aside quietly. They will go down to our nurse, the school nurse. They'll be taken to a separate location where they will have their temperature taken again with a more accurate, we believe, medical grade thermometer. In the event that they have a fever, again, they have a fever. There's lots of things that can cause a fever. We're not sending in any special team or anything that you might be hearing. We're just going to do a physical assessment. The nurse will take care of that, just like they would with any other student or adult who is sick. If they have the signs or symptoms of COVID, we will refer them to an agency where they can be tested. We are also, as required, in the process of working with Telemed Mobile to provide testing, and we're working with the Seneca Nation Clinic to provide testing as well. But I want to ensure that our nurses have all been trained, our staff has all been trained. There are a lot of other illnesses that cause a fever. There are a lot of other illnesses that cause a cough. So we will take all of the precautions necessary, but you will also not see an overreaction that would raise the anxiety level of our students. Supplies will be completely provided by the district once again, if you are a hybrid student coming into school or if you are at home. We will be communicating with you shortly over how you will get those supplies. Most likely they will be dropped off to your house. Buildings will temperatures be taken. Oh, I just answered that one. Go ahead.
Questions, Dr. Beeler?
All right. Do you have one you can answer while I get caught up here?
Question. So question came from a parent with a 4th, 7th, 8th, and 12th grader. First, thank you for helping keep our enrollment numbers up. We appreciate that. Grading is something that we are actively looking at. When we had COVID 1.0, we were concerned about equity, computer access, and I think we've really made some tremendous progress in making sure that the digital access was not something that would interfere with a child or a family's ability to access the instruction. Grading still is something that is an ongoing concern for us. And with regard to a specific numeric grading, I would say we're going to hold on that for a minute, and we're going to need to have some additional conversations with our building principals and internally within a district. And I would suggest that the grading will look differently than it did March through June. And we're going to strive to get back to authentic assessments for our students to measure their instructional growth and or instructional concerns that may happen because of deficits.
Great, thank you. You asked us to hold for a minute, and it's been almost a minute. I'm pretty sure at the last meeting, Mr. Siebert indicated, at least at the high school, we were going to go back to numeric grading. Is that correct? Just so I want to make sure we're consistent, especially for our viewers out there who are going to say, no, last time you said this. Do you just want to make sure we're all on the same page with that?
Yes, so the high school is going to go back to a numeric system. And again, based on what Mr. Bridenstine said, the advancements we've made as far as, our ability to digitally teach our students, and then making sure that all of our students do have access to the lessons and things. So I think we're in a much better position now, that it will be fair and equitable across the board for all students. So
Great, thank you. Where we don't have a solid answer is at Prospect and Seneca, and I believe they're working through that process this week and next week, so that we'll be able to communicate that shortly. One question said, if they have several children, can they choose different models? Absolutely. We are committed to, first off, meeting the requests and the needs of the parents and students, and we understand that those needs may be different. Sometimes I reflect on my own kids at moments like this. One of my kids is, when it was announced that they were going to be virtual for the first 8-9 weeks, was as happy as could be. He did well in a virtual environment. The other one cried for 2 full days because she wasn't going to be in school. So if I had the option, like we do here in Salamanca, one would be coming into school and one would be at home. And the very least that we can do is extend that opportunity to our students here. When will supplies be expected to be dropped off? Mrs. Beaver, I think you indicated a date for that. There we go. So the 26th and 27th for Seneca, and I'm actually going to ask a question myself. Is that the same for all 3 buildings, or at this point, is it just Seneca? Oh, all right, there we go. Look at that. I learned something too today. It looks like the 26th and 27th, we will be dropping off supplies throughout the district. Are they going to be allowed backpacks? Yes. Students are not going to be using lockers this year. So we will allow students to use backpacks and hopefully backpacks, not necessarily big bags to drag around. Last time we were asked a question about whether the backpack can have wheels. All right, I like to think I'm cool and up on everything, but I didn't even know there were backpacks with wheels. Mr. Siebert indicated that he had concerns over the safety of those, so backpacks with wheels will not be permitted at this point in time. Oh, here's a great question. Will temperatures be taken before students get on the bus? Obviously, if they're sick and don't get a temperature till it's too late. We agree with you completely. There's going to be several parts to this. One, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be putting out information to our parents to help them, particularly those who have students that are coming into the building, to help them transition students back. We're also going to be making some recommendations that we need to start to get on more of a schedule. I'm sure many high school students are getting up around 10, 11, 12, maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon and staying up until God only knows what time. We need to start shifting those times so that students, particularly at the high school, can begin to take advantage of the teaching opportunities that are occurring, especially the office hours during the day. So we'll put out some of those recommendations to parents, as well as some things to look for. There's going to be a high level of anxiety across the board. For our teachers returning to campus, for our students who are returning to campus or even just returning to the e-learning environment, as well as for our parents. We are sensitive to that. We understand that. We will continue to monitor the social and emotional stability and attitude of our staff and students alike. So we are sympathetic to that and understand that. I varied actually from Ms. Smith's question. We do anticipate and expect that temperatures will be taken before students get onto the bus. With regard to the particulars of exactly how that's going to occur, I can't say that someone will be standing there with a thermometer, but I agree with you and you are correct. It is essential that students must have a temperature taken before they get on the bus and go through that screening initially.
I think if I can follow up with that, one of the things that has been shared with us as a district from the parents is their willingness to self-transport children. And I think that the volume and density on the buses is looking like it will be significantly lower than it has ever been on the buses. That will create some traffic and some congestion issues as parents are dropping off students at both Prospect and the main campus, whether they're Seneca students or high school age students. If there are specific concerns with a student who does not pass the screening mechanisms that we will have, or are concerns from parents, we would simply ask the parents and the community to help us make sure that their child or children, if there are any concerns, to err on the side of caution and not put them on the bus.
Let's see. Nikki makes a statement here that just simply said, well, it doesn't simply, it actually makes an important statement. She hopes that there is still an option for those that are concerned about having their child to continue on e-learning. While I'm hesitant to say that we will provide an e-learning option for the entire year, the reason I'm hesitant is because that's a long time from now, and I don't know where we will be with medical advancements and whatnot. I will tell you this, that as long as the threat exists, we will continue to provide an e-learning option. That was kind of a big statement. I better make sure I can back that up. I still believe that to be true, though. We're not going to force students to come to campus if there is a legitimate concern over their health, or we understand the health of people at home that might be affected as well. So I'm actually going to stand behind that, and we will still offer that e-learning opportunity.
So I'm getting some individual text messages and notifications, the least of which is apparently the governor is on TV or giving statements, which has traumatized me since March. But there is a private message that I had received about e-learning, stating that not every child is capable of learning at home, and I would agree with that. We have found that some students are thriving in an e-learning environment, and others are doing okay, and others are struggling. So I would agree with that statement 100%, and that requesting a tutor, if there is a specific request for a tutor or a subject matter that might need specific tutoring or content support, I would make sure that you contact either the specific classroom teacher and let them know that, and we can mobilize just about anything to help any child at any grade level if there are difficulties, and or contact one of the school counselors at your specific building. At Prospect, it's Miss Dry. At Seneca, it's Mr. Reed or Mrs. Newberg. At the high school, it is Mrs. Sibilio, Mrs. Winship, and Mrs. Beauvais or Bova at the high school, and or any of the building administrators can provide some additional support. There was a secondary, third, tertiary conversation in that email or text message, excuse me, about merit grading. And we want the grading to reflect the actual effort of the student and the continuity of the instruction. I agree with that. And better open up the classroom. So as Dr. Beeler had stated, we want the classrooms to be open as much as anyone else, as long as we can do it safely and in a way to not compromise safety, wellness, or the instruction.
Let's see, I think there are several questions that are being asked with regard to particularly the high school model, it looks like, and what access people will have, or students will have, to tutors. Will they be able to meet with teachers? I think the overall message and takeaway I would ask for everyone in attendance to take away is that we are moving as a district to a much more individualized instruction format, meaning we're committed to meeting the individual needs of each and every student, not all students collectively, but each and individual student. We have the resources to do that. We are committed to ensuring that each student is successful. So moving forward, particularly in the fall, the way instruction is going to be delivered is going to be a little bit different for each student, because each student does in fact need something different.
There is a question. You're on mute. There is a question about BOCES, and as we had mentioned earlier, students attending BOCES vocational, 11th graders go in the morning and seniors go in the afternoon. And if there are specific concerns about transportation, you can contact the guidance office to let them know if there are specific concerns. And BOCES has indicated that juniors and seniors in good standing may self-transport or be parent drop it off, which is something new. And Bethany had asked during the supply computer drop-off dates if they're not available due to work or other, in this case, dropping off a sibling at a college campus. You can let us know when is a good time and we can make that arrangement, or we can make a separate arrangements for drive-up, drive-through distribution.
Let's see. So here's a great question, because we're looking for more and more details. When will parents find out their children's teachers and what days they are going? So that was a topic of conversation, and I know we're going to be working through this in more detail tomorrow. I'm going to ask, we'll start with Ms. Pavone, I think, to say, when do you think we'll be able to make that final determination and share that information with parents?
I'm hoping to be able to send letters home on Thursday to let individuals know who their homeroom teachers are. And just as a reminder, if you're on e-learning, you may see multiple different teachers throughout the day. So you may have a homeroom teacher for homeroom huddle, but then may not see them for ELA and math, dependent on the times chosen in the letter that will be coming home. But our hope is Thursday. We're just really waiting for those survey results to be completed so we know everyone that's e-learning and hybrid.
Okay, I'm going to ask Mrs. Beaver the same thing. in a moment, will they be learning basic subjects? So we're still a comprehensive school district across the board. If students, particularly at Prospect and at the younger grades at Seneca, the focus of the instruction when students are on campus are going to be the primary core areas, with exploratories, which would be art and STEAM and music, being done a little bit more through the e-learning process. That's not necessarily because they're less important, but because we can deliver the instruction similarly. But the big takeaway and answer to that question is we are not going to be shaving off half of our curriculum and offerings to students because of this. We will be providing comprehensive, so all of the courses at the high school are still going to be taught. We will still be offering all of the exploratory areas. They might be a little bit different in the way that they are done, but we're not going to be skimping on the education for our students. Mrs. Beaver, with regard to a timeline for when you'll be letting parents know what their teachers are.
Yes, we will also be mailing out a letter Thursday, so you should be receiving notification of your child's teacher and whether or not you are on the A days or B days sometime next week in the mail.
Let's see, I'm going to ask Mr. Siebert in a minute, but I see there's a question. Let's see, if you're a working parent and won't get home until after school hours, my child may not be able to be at all daily Zoom meetings, but will be able to do learning videos later in the day. How can we work around attendance and proof of learning? Oh, terrific. So there's two questions there. One, which is proof of learning, which that's a whole philosophical discussion that we could have about assessment. I don't think you want to get that deep into this, but attendance is a whole nother topic. So, and then I think this is from Alicia, right? Yeah. So it looks like one of the things that we have improved upon is class pages and some of the offerings that can be done electronically through class pages, including the ability to identify what students have signed into their class pages on that day, how long they have spent working in the e-learning environment, whether or not they have viewed a particular lesson or video that you may have put out there, as well as some of the options within that video for you as a teacher to create it, pause that video, have the student answer a question. You'll actually get feedback as to whether they got that question correct or incorrect, sort of as a asynchronous formative feedback type format. But at the same time, that will be taking attendance. So we are still, well, actually in the spring, we weren't necessarily required to take attendance the way we are now in the fall. In the fall, as we enter school again, whether we have students through the e-learning process or in person, districts are required to show evidence of attendance or participation. And some of the new technologies that we have put in place over the past 2 to 3 months allow that and give us much better feedback.
Dr. Bueller and Mr. Siebert, here is an amazing question. Our child did all of her work the day she received it. Can she take more classes via e-learning than she normally would with in-person schooling?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's the first time that's been asked. And so again, as Dr. Bueller had noted, and then I'll let them respond, this is fundamentally changing the whole construct of public education for a customized, individualized approach. And this is one of the benefits of this approach to learning is greater opportunities. So Dr. Bueller, Mr. Siebert, any thoughts?
All right, I already know the right answer to this, but this is going to be a test for Mr. Siebert to see if he gets the answer right. Mr. Siebert, what's the word? Can students take additional courses through e-learning?
Initially, I would like to be able to offer that, but if we do end up coming back in person, I don't know how we'd all be able to fit it all in the normal school day then. I'm optimistic that at some point in time before the end of the year, we'll be back to in-person learning, and I guess I would allow it for like enrichment purposes for sure. How'd I do?
That wasn't really the answer I was hoping that you were going to share, but it does make more sense than what I was going to say because it implied logistics.
I mean, my initial gut, I'd love to see it, but I'm not sure whether logistically when we're back in session.
Right. So let's do this. Let me offer a happy medium. I believe that we may very well be able to continue a electronic format in one form or another, even if, let's say COVID disappears in January and we return to campus, I would still look to see how we could continue that. So I'm going to say to whoever asked that, it looks like
Sarah.
Lydia, yep, regarding Sarah, I think, let's see if we can't figure out how to make that happen. I'm not willing to say no just yet, or yes, apparently. But we'll see how we can make that happen.
One of the benefits of being at the top of the letterhead is you get to weigh in here with some aspirational things. The building principal, particularly at the high school, can authorize independent studies, and this is something that we have done in the past. And if a student is accelerating and really doing exceptionally well with e-learning and balancing all of their responsibilities, we have in the past provided opportunities for up to 6 credits per student for their high school career of independent study. We've done that before. This seems to be an appropriate use of that authority. So I would say start, and as long as we're in e-learning, and if that changes and when that changes, then we can address that to make sure we support the child, student, or students who really want to excel and rocket through the curriculum.
Terrific. Bobby asked a question. Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, go ahead.
Oh, all
Bobby
right.
was going to ask a question, not this Bobby.
Let's see. We will be grouping students by family or household to make it easier on the family and household. So the question is, if there are siblings, will they go on the same day, or will we separate them? We will put them on the same day. That we believe is less burdensome on the family and the household. So you'll at least have a break on 2 days a week. So we are committed to doing that. And if for one reason or another that it happens that we have not done that for your family, please let us know so that we can make an adjustment if that's possible. And then Tammy brought something up here. Here's a question that we haven't had before about discussions with Atlantic Broadband, which is pretty much the only provider of internet, and excessive usage fees, since we're going to be focusing a lot on e-learning. This is something that we have been working with the city to provide additional internet service to families, but we have not worked specifically with Atlantic Broadband and leveraged whatever we can with them to have a better understanding of the financial burdens that excessive bandwidth and usage can have. So
I have some additional information.
So do you have information on that?
I clicked. I have
All
some
right.
information.
There we go.
I have 2 things that I can say. First, on a much broader big government approach, we are working to pursue legislation to provide additional supports for rural broadband connectivity with Congressman Reed. Senator Gillibrand and a host of senators did just propose legislation this week already about boosting internet access to rural school districts like Salamanca. And we are and have reached out to community businesses and public entities, the city, about adding additional boosters so that they can piggyback off of our internet service, in particular at the Hillside Apartments and out at the Steenberg Community Center, as well as several locations in the city to boost the signal. Because if our buses are doing midday runs and alternate type of transportations, we won't have the ability to park our buses. So we've already gone ahead and worked with a separate internet provider company to boost our signal throughout the city so that families can piggyback and use our internet and not have to use their own.
We do have Rob Miller, director of all things that plug into the wall for Salamanca Schools. He can probably provide a little bit more information regarding that.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I surveyed the community with another provider today, and we found 6 or 7 locations, and we have businesses willing to help out and community organizations ready to help out for more outdoor internet access. And it looks like we're going to be able to hit each one of the communities in the school district in one form or another. So,
all right, great, thank you. I do know that Mr. Miller has expanded our hotspot capabilities by 50%, meaning we have I think at least 150 Wi-Fi hotspots that we can loan out to the students once again this year. So we will work with Atlantic Broadband and leverage whatever resources we can to assist with a better understanding of the financial burdens that districts or parents may have. We're still going to loan out the hotspots along with the one-to-one devices. And then we're not going to be parking buses, but as Mr. Miller indicated, we do have locations that will actually provide the same service that those buses provided, but actually in a better, more stronger format. A question with regard to kindergarten for Prospect. They understand that it'll be starting with 2 days a week. At any time will they have the option to do 3 or 4 days. That would really be our goal moving forward. We're just hesitant to say we're going to do 4 days or 3 days because we're not sure if we're going to be able to do that. When we talk long-term, as in the whole year, I would certainly hope that we will have students back more than 2 days a week. Please just understand that that is our goal as much as it is your goal. It's just difficult for us to make a commitment to when that will happen until we have a better understanding of the dynamics of the disease as well as the dynamics of our district.
Follow up on the internet question from Mary about internet help in areas like Kilbuck. Regrettably, Kilbuck is a challenging area because of cell phone connectivity, and that really does drive the ability for the internet to get there through a hotspot, unless it's a dedicated line, which is still a challenge, and even then it's slow. That's part of the legislative approach that we've been pushing with our federal representatives. I wish I had a better answer for Kilbuck, but the connectivity in Kilbuck is pretty bad. Perhaps maybe the worst in the district. I would suggest to families or locations that are really experiencing difficulties to please reach out to Mr. Miller at the school district as our IT coordinator. He can perhaps work out some solutions. We're here to help in just about any way that we can.
Okay, so we have about 15 minutes left in the time frame that we has designated. I hope we have answered sufficiently all the questions that have been posed to us. I'm going to ask each one of our administrators if there's anything that they would like to share to expand upon. We'll start with Mr. Siebert back there. You don't have to say anything, but now that I've called you out and made a big deal out of it, you probably want to.
I will mention that schedules for students in grades 8 through 12, we anticipate they'll be going out by the end of the week as well. I know that there was a question earlier regarding, what teachers the students were assigned to. So those schedules will be going out, and then Lydia will work with you as far as what other classes you want to take.
All right. How about Mrs. Beaver?
I'll just wrap up by saying it's important to note that clear expectations will be in place for all students regarding health and safety, as well as the e-learning and hybrid practices. All students will be held accountable for their work that's assigned to them, and if you need additional support, it will be available. We haven't talked much about students with IEPs or 504s or other identified needs, but those students will be fully supported through our teletherapy and different accommodations throughout the school day. If they need to be in the building more than 2 days a week, we'll accommodate that. Seneca has an incredible and dedicated staff that's passionate and ready to get students back in school and ready to learn. So I'm fortunate to be a part of the district. Although it's a crazy time, I'm looking forward to meeting and seeing all the students in September.
Thank you. Ms. Pavone?
If you have hybrid students, start wearing masks now. Practice with stuffed animals. Practice going locations with them, just so the first day of school isn't the first time that they're putting a mask on. The more comfortable they are with it prior to coming to the building, the better off we'll be. Also in our mailings, we'll have information on how to log into PowerSchool, so you can get to class pages, just be sure to try and do that prior to September 1st so we can get the most use out of class pages as possible. And we look forward to seeing you either in person or via Zoom. And we will continue to do our announcements on a daily basis. I cannot promise that they'll all be around Mario Kart though, or anything like that, but we will continue to try to make fun announcements on a daily basis. And if you need any help or support, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Great, thank you. We have one question before I head to Mrs. Dudek regarding cafeteria. I can share that breakfast and lunch will likely occur in classrooms until we can figure out the cafeteria and make sure that everything's comfortable in the cafeteria. We'll likely transition to the cafeteria after a couple weeks of making sure that everything makes sense in the classroom. But I know for Prospect, and I don't know for Seneca, to be honest with you, if they're going to be utilizing the cafeteria or in the classroom. So why don't I ask Mrs. Beaver, what's the word on that?
At this time, the answer would be lunches in the classroom.
Got it. The confidence level with which you said that is awesome. So that's something that it looks like we're still working out. They
will be fed.
Yeah, we know that they'll be fed. Where exactly, we're not 100% sure. I know that at Prospect, though, because we've had this conversation, it's going to start out in the classrooms where we have a little bit more control, and then we may begin to progress into the cafeteria. Let's see, Mrs. Dudek.
Earlier about IEPs and 504s. We will be addressing all of those with the families, with the principals. Any students that are in need of significant help, a lot of those families have reached out or we have spoken to them one-on-one. But whether you're e-learning or hybrid, you will have the opportunity for your student to have those supports just like they did in the springtime. If you have specific questions because they are so individualized, please reach out to our office. Our number is 716-945-5142.
Perfect, thank you. Let's see, the gym or phys ed classes, how are we going to be doing that? I'll tell you, one of the conversations that we had today and we'll continue to have over the next couple of days until we get it hammered out is how recess will look. We're a big fan of recess across the board for having students when they're on site in our hybrid model. We totally understand and don't expect our students to just sit in one space for any length of time. So we're going to be working through how we can get them up and out and moving. Physical education class is an area that we're still working on with regard to what objects are touched and what are not, and how we can execute appropriate phys ed classes. Our goal is to do just that, but I do not at this point in time have exact information about what that will look like.
So say that one more
Right.
time.
Sorry to interrupt. It will start, all special areas will start on class pages as a video link that's about 10 to 15 minutes long so that they can still be exposed to all the critical areas that they need. And then we'll start to expand that as we get things working.
Great.
So
Thank you.
a couple of other questions that have come up is parent support, family support for the internet connections and whatnot. And Ms. Pavone just kind of touched on that. We will be providing some outreach. If an individual family is having technical difficulties, if it's hardware, software, then they can certainly contact Mr. Miller in the IT department. But if you're having technical difficulties, then one of our instructional coaches, in particular, Ms. Schnoffer, who is our computer coach and technology coach with all things use of computers. There are lots of folks here that can help. Just reach out and let us know, and we'll do our best to walk you through like a help desk type of access. The other element was lunches, and we will be serving lunches and breakfast to students in a similar capacity to what we did March through June. We will not be in a position to do individual drop-offs for lunches, but we will have multiple locations throughout the community where food service will be available, particularly on days where students are either clustered and doing e-learning, or they are off-site doing their instruction by parent choice. So we will be providing food to students. And the lastly was a private question about how the lower grades can open safely and the high school cannot. And I think we just need to clarify, the first week is remote for all students. And then starting the second week, based on individual needs, some of the lower grade students will be coming in for a portion of that time for individualized programming. And then we will start phasing in the potting or household instruction if all things go well and we can do it safely starting the week of, I believe that's the 14th.
Probably, correct.
Yes.
Yes, there we go.
Okay, sorry, I don't have a specific calendar in front of me, but that third week of school, which is the first full 5-day week of September, is when we would anticipate going to the alternating schedule based on families, households, or pods.
Let's see, just to expand on two things there. One, probably within a week, if not at the end of next week, there'll be more information about what Mr. Bridenstine referred to with regard to the technical assistance for parents and students. With this focus on e-learning, that's dependent on the technical piece of having the internet and resources at home, and then on the knowledge part of how to operate them. We completely understand that those are two separate things, and we will be establishing sort of a help desk phone system where you will initiate from a parent or a student with a phone call that will actually be answered by a human being. And then we will work with you to actually be able to remotely control your device and then actually spend time with you teaching you how to navigate through class pages and access the other resources. You're also going to find for our parents, there will be multiple sessions throughout the fall to help you so that you're comfortable with accessing class pages, which is where all of the educational resources are for your student. So we recognize that that sometimes is an obstacle, and we will help you with that. With no cell service, with a hotspot. Yes. So if you do not, so there's several pieces to that question that was asked with regard to internet. So there's, you can get internet through, say, Atlantic Broadband. If you have that service, you can get internet through a dish service, which typically is not that useful, especially when you need the bandwidth that's necessary. You can also get it with a hotspot, and we refer to those sort of either as Wi-Fi or hotspots. Those hotspots, though, work through the cellular phone service. So if you're in a location that does not have cell phone service, that we can provide you with a Wi-Fi hotspot, it just won't do anything. So then we're down to the third option, which is what Mr. Miller was talking about, where he has identified locations throughout the community that they will be producing from neither one of those services. So it's a contracted service that we have where we will be able to provide Wi-Fi at a location free of charge to students in the community. Then those locations do not have to have cellular service. Specifically, I don't know what the magic service is that's getting there, but I can tell you that in areas where they typically don't have internet, we can now provide that, not at a household level, but as a centralized location that people can go to. Where is the main office at Salamanca High School? Oh, that's a good question. So over the next several weeks, you're going to see a transformation in our parking lot at the high school. We anticipate that in about 3 weeks, the parking lot will be complete, as well as a new entrance to the high school. Typically, students enter the 50 Iroquois campus through two spaces. One, the doors that would look to be the main entrance by the auditorium. Those will be utilized by Seneca students when they get off the bus in the morning. The high school office doors are next to the receiving area, has another large overhang there. That entrance has been revamped and will be where all of our high school students will be entering. And will Prospect have after-hour schooling, like mentioned, for high school? let's see, I don't have a good answer to that. I don't believe we're anticipating a significant amount of after-hours instruction and schooling for students at Prospect. Ms. Pavone, I'm going to put you on the spot here and ask you to talk about that.
We won't have it by specific grade level, but we are working towards having adults available to support and getting work complete if you weren't able to attend Zoom meetings during the day. So it wouldn't be a grade level specific teacher, but it would be another adult that would be willing to support. And I can't guarantee that that would be by grade level strand either, but it would at least be someone that would be familiar with what's on class pages and how to get those items complete.
The other aspect to after hours, and specifically with the buildings being opened, until we are back to a full 5-day-a-week operational program, the availability and openness of our buildings and facilities will be virtually zero because of the public health and safety crisis. So if there are outside community groups that typically use our buildings for meetings or events, until we're back to at least a 5-day schedule, even if it's not full days, but 5 days of students attending, access to the building, unfortunately for the public health and safety aspect of the COVID crisis, will not be permitted until such time that we're able to open up all day.
I'll give you a moment in a second to do the sports, and I'll just finish up. I think Nancy Williams' question with how many families it applies to that don't have internet. I'm thinking this is Nancy Williams from the Seneca Nation. We have a pretty detailed list of exactly what households in our district have internet, do not have internet, and what the grade level of the students are in that building, as well as, thanks to Dr. Hayes, whether or not those households have cell phone coverage. So we can work with you to get that information to you specifically, so that we can work together to get internet to those families.
And I think we'll take the last call for today is, can I touch base once more on what's happening with fall sports? Sure. About 6 weeks or so ago, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, which is a governing body for all athletics in New York State, issued clarification and guidance that the fall sports season would be compressed from what normally would have started approximately 2 weeks ago to not being able to begin until September 21st. The fall season, therefore, is still on technically, but won't start until September 21st. It is far more realistic to assume that that all athletics will be condensed and compressed from a fall, winter, and spring season to a very accelerated, shortened, condensed 3 sports seasons, starting in January with the least risky athletics such as volleyball and bowling because of the contact that they would begin in the January to end of February term. More sports would start in March, and I'll deem them moderate risk because of physical contact, and then other sports that are really spring or good weather specific like baseball would happen in the end of April till the end of June. So I would suspect that athletics would not be permitted to begin in September, although as of today they can. And the Public High School Athletic Association has also indicated that fall championships are canceled and will likely not occur.
All right. So I'm going to answer the last question here, which is, what about robotics? Robotics starts in mid to late fall, so I don't want to make a determination about whether that will run or not. I'm hoping, as probably many of you are, that it will. So if there's a way to, the other big takeaway is here, if we can make something work and do it safely, we're going to do it. 100%. So I'll let Mr. Bridenstine have the last word because he'll undoubtedly do that either way.
I think,
okay,
as
go
I'm
ahead.
cutting you off right now, I think that that's really appropriate for Dr. Beal and everyone's benefit. While other districts are summarily just saying, that's it, we're done, we'll see you in January. our approach is going to be much more slower and methodical. And if we can run something, whether it's a co-curricular or any other activity, if we can do it successfully in a different platform, then we're going to do it. For example, newspaper club is a co-curricular, and we have a number of students that do that. They submit their articles and they're printed in the Salamanca Press. There is virtually no reason why that can't continue in a digital world, but something like archery or trap club or swimming are things that really we need to be back in session for kids, and it needs to be safe. So the takeaway is if we can do it safely, we're going to do it. And if you don't hear directly from the horse's mouth or the other end, as my wife tells me, assume that it's still on. And if you have specific questions and you're hearing rumors, unless they're coming directly from this forum, this format, or from your principal, or a direct publication from the district via our normal social media or website or all calls, assume that we're still on. And when we cancel things or postpone them, we will let you know directly and specifically, like the picnics for the 26th and 27th, those have been postponed, and we hope to have them at a later date. And I guess I will end by thanking our parents. Levi, what was our approximate count of people today? Approximately 125 individual distinct users have participated in today's forum. Last week, it was over 210, which means we're providing our community and staff the opportunity to weigh in and ask us questions. And if it's more than once, that's okay. It helps us communicate that message. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your trust. And thank you for helping to help us make Salamanca District and our schools the very best we can be in these crazy and uncertain times. Thank you.